I can solve this.
All right, so we're good to go.
All right, good.
Max, where are you sitting, Max? Are you in your office or are you at home or?
I am in my office.
Okay, well, I'll tell you, the sound is much, much better when you're not sitting in front of a microphone in the conference room.
Yes, I would figure that.
Yep.
All right.
Hey, Max,
Live.
did you do an agenda? Oh, it was Jen. Did you do an agenda? Yes.
You know what? I did not send out an agenda for this
Oh,
week. I apologize.
Okay. All right.
So we're gonna wing it. How's that?
Okay.
Oh,
So thanks everybody for dialing in. This is our second attempt at a Zoom meeting. We felt like we had for those who weren't on the call last month, we felt like we actually accomplished some things and felt it was worthwhile to at least have some continuity and some direction in terms of where the EDC's heading, even though we're in the middle of this pandemic. So, so this is the route we're going to go. So again, thanks for calling in. I don't have a whole lot on chairman's report. You know, as all of you know, we've all been kind of hunkered down at home for the last several months, or a lot of us have. So there hasn't been a tremendous amount of activity. A lot of the fundraising stuff that we normally would see around this time of the year, you know, paint the town and events like that have all been canceled. So really the sense I think moving forward is, you know, we've lost a couple of galleries in town. You know, Philippe's moved out. And so the thinking is where, you know, it wouldn't hurt us to kind of get a sense of where we're at and where the town's at, where businesses are at. And is there something we can do moving forward to help with the existing businesses and kind of take it from there. So that's kind of our thinking in terms of moving forward with the EDC anyway. So any comments to any of that?
I can give you a little bit of an update. The seaweed factories, in fact, both of them have not really been impacted negatively by the disease. We're having a good year. The other businesses up in the business park are all seem to be doing fine. The eel project is not broken ground yet, but they're optimistic they will be soon. So that still seems to be a plus. And actually the fella that was working with the oysters seems to have gotten another grant. So they're going to come back to life a little bit. So those things are all good.
George, is that oysters on the Madomic?
No, it's oysters on a land-based system if they can figure out how to make the feed.
Oh, okay.
And the water cleaning system. It's a very cool idea.
All right.
It's in the Arch building up there that has the solar power.
Good.
And I think Travis Reed's solar farm is advancing. I had a meeting at one point with one of the principals in that. We wanted to sell electricity to the park, and I haven't heard back from him, but sounds like it's moving ahead, and I think I see work going on over there. So, Max, do you know anything more about that?
The solar farm is getting is starting construction. I think they're right now just clearing it and getting a bridge so that they can move all their equipment to the actual work area. So they should start construction around now, and hopefully they'll have it all done by the spring.
Good.
I did approach them for the library, George, just to see if they'd be interested in producing some for it. And I've heard nothing from them.
Okay.
I'll send another email out to Sunrays to see just to try and get them to reach out to you two again.
Yeah, I think I copied you, Max, on an email I sent today to them.
Mm-hmm.
I think. Although my email system still thinks you're at least 2 planners ago. So now my email has to learn your name.
You can tell it.
Yeah, my email doesn't listen to me. My phone is too smart and my email doesn't listen.
George, when you start typing Max's name and it brings up the wrong contact, if you mouse over that, look to see if there's a little X to the right of the auto-completed address. And some email programs, that's how you clear out old cached entries. It doesn't work every time, but it's worth a shot.
Well, I'm afraid I might delete another Max that I don't want to delete.
Well, I don't want to do that to you for sure.
I got too many contacts.
No such
Yeah.
thing. Well, maybe there's such a thing.
I would love to hear from anybody because I've been completely
I
isolated.
know, off the radar, George.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
have.
What's going on with the Sylvania site? Is
Well,
some,
hey, George, before we do that, why don't we switch over to Max and ask him to give us an update
all right,
on
perfect.
town activities? I don't, Julie isn't on, is she?
She is not on.
Okay, so Max, if you could give us a town update on some of the projects and especially an update on, we talked last month about the vacant properties around town and that you wanted to create a committee, hopefully the EDC, to take a look at those and what we could do with them.
And AD Gray, if there's any new info on AD Gray.
So last week, well, just because Jen brought up AD Gray, so last week, Volunteers of America held a public discussion for residents of Waldoboro. I think some people got a flyer in the mail, just saying that this was happening. And we had a good turnout. I think there were about 12 people, and a few of those I think was Bob and Jan from the select board and Ben Vale, who's also on the AD Gray subcommittee. A lot of good questions, some positive and negative comments, but it was a good thing to have, at least. Right. And we even held a meeting today with Volunteers of America to talk about I think it was more talking about another neighbor's concern, but it's going forward. We're hoping to see what the results are for the November 3rd election with what the town thinks on the non-binding question. That's an important thing. There's a non-binding question of whether we should sell AD Gray to Volunteers of America for their potential project. And so that's the AD Gray bit of news.
Question.
Yes,
Volunteers of America sounds like a nonprofit that
they are.
funny hats. I mean, are they a private enterprise or what are they?
They are a nonprofit organization. They do senior housing projects in various parts. Well, the chapter we're dealing with does it for Maine and New Hampshire. They have a facility up in Thomaston. They have one down in Topsom. They have one up in Belfast, Saco. I'm trying to think of another one, and they wanted to do one in Waldoboro as part of their Mid-Coast regional strategy, just to sort of have another spot to fill in the Thomaston to Brunswick gap. And they saw AD Gray and thought, that's a good building. We can probably get about we could get at least 32 units out of that. So, but they do other work. I think they initially started talking with Julie because of her interest in getting a community navigator, and it sort of evolved more into housing as a focus for this project.
Do they have any particular advantages by being a nonprofit in this whole process? Tax or anything?
I can respond to that if you don't
Yeah,
want.
go ahead.
The advantages of going with them are, one, they've done it many times before. This is nothing new to them, including rehabbing old buildings. Max and I visited their facility in Thomaston. Now it's a new building, new construction. And it's a nice building. They're well run. They know the tax laws regarding this kind of project inside and out. They know where the money is. They know how to get it. And I think it's probably got good potential as a partnership. If anybody has a criticism, it is that we're building more subsidized housing in Waldoboro. And that's true. But in the absence of any other viable alternative, I think this is a good use for AD Gray.
Yeah, and also think about it. There's a lot of older people in town who might not want to stay in their homes, over time.
Yep.
They may want to sell it to some people from Massachusetts.
Fair.
They
They
need,
don't want it, they can't give people from any particular location priority. But if you're from Waldoboro, because of the laws governing their money that they get, but if you're from Waldoboro and a room isn't available, you can get on their waiting list. And that's not peanuts. They have a fairly decent turnover over time because the average age of their resident is fairly high.
That kind of turnover.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I mean, that's a practical answer.
Yeah.
yeah.
Reality.
well, and,
Says Ruben.
well, and part of their strategy is also, and part of the reason why they wanted Waldoboro was because even though they put seniors on the wait list, it doesn't mean that a senior won't be left homeless. They'll look for a spot that's open and
Yeah.
then wait until the spot is open in Waldoboro. So for example, there's a space open in Thomaston, then that Waldoboro resident will go to Thomaston, and once a spot opens up in Waldoboro, they can then move to Waldoboro.
Is there any type of timetable if the project is approved as to how long it would take to complete?
They did give us a milestone rough timeline, and I think they said construction would start 2022 and end 2023. But between November of this year and 2022, they'd also be trying to get all the grant funding and permitting done, a lot of pre-planning, a lot of pre-construction items done, which they will be spending their own money for.
Are they asking Waldoboro for any monies of any sort? Are there tax monies or?
The town will have to give, the town would be essentially giving it for $0 to $1.
Right. And that's it?
I'm assisting with putting it on the National Register so they can qualify for historic tax credits, but that was something that was asked for of the last developer as well. So I'm not really, plus one thing that we wanted to do with Waldoboro is create a national district. So with 80 grade being in it. So again, it kind of already aligns with our goals already.
Yeah.
That will be one of the questions
Are
out.
we zoned in a way that there could be a convenience store up near there for people who live there? I've forgotten what the opportunities are that would follow people living there, but I think we talked about it at some point.
Well, wasn't that the other guy? That was the other guy.
I know, I just mean that if there's people living there, they're going to want to buy bread.
Yeah.
Sure, but the village, I mean, that could be an opportunity for the village. It's like 2 blocks,
Yeah.
you know.
Well, it was just a question of when you're
Yeah.
89 of those blocks.
Oh, true. Well, there you go. We could get those golf carts going, you know. Like Waldoboro Day.
No, partly no, because the other question that's coming up on the Waldoboro warrant, which is a binding question, is to place 80 Gray into the historic village district,
Right.
which does not allow convenience stores.
Inside, right?
Inside the district, correct.
But inside the building.
No,
The building would be in the district.
but Max, are you sure there can't be a convenience store in the district? Because don't we have, I mean, I thought we had convenience stores in the village before. Wanted to,
Those are in the downtown. The historic village, at least now, I don't think allows that. I mean, it depends what we're talking about with a convenience store. Are we talking like, one of those classic small grocery stores, or are we talking like a selection like a gas station that's more retail? Like, are we talking
Yeah.
more a McGreevy's? What are we talking about exactly?
yeah, okay, I get you. Because I was looking at the map in preparation for the meeting where we had designated the former area on the map that we wanted to see if we could get a vote to put it or get it approved as a historical district.
Mhm.
Because I was looking at 80 grade thinking, I don't know why we never did that, or we never even, but Bill would be able to tell you because he was involved in, I think, or was it Misty and Bill? I don't remember.
I think he said what Bill told me is that he just didn't go forward because I think it was because most people didn't understand what was going to be like. They didn't understand the cost risk. Like some people assume that there's going to be a lot of strict rules with it that apply to it, when really it's only strict if you use the historic tax credits.
Yeah.
Unless you have local rules, which is going to be why 80 Gray is going to go in the historic village district, so that we do have some architectural standards we do ask for.
Uh-huh. We did a lot of presentations. The consultant did, and gave people, all the people who attended were owners or business owners or owners of the buildings. We did like 3 meetings with them and we gave them all that information. But I think sometimes, and they even offered to sit down with people individually and help them figure out what the cost benefit analysis would be for them. But I think people just get kind of funny about that stuff.
Yeah. So that's just something that the district, National Registered District,
Yeah.
that's something that I'm hopefully going to be working more on once the election's done. So I know whether I need to speed up and put 80 Gray on the fast track, or if I can have time and do more of a district.
Would that
Gotcha.
district be all of School Street, or what would be the bounds of the limit?
The plan is essentially anything that's in the historic village district at this time. That's essentially, and that includes our downtown district as well. That is, I mean, I'm trying to get a committee put together that would help outline this district, because I would like to go down as far as, say, the Madomic House and include that on the National Register. And
It's on the map. The Madomic House was on the map.
yeah,
Yeah, because I'm looking at the map right now, page 6 of the downtown revitalization thing, and it's got it all mapped out in there,
right.
what the district was proposed.
I mean, in terms of Main Street, I'd love to go, as far west, I guess, as where the bridge is, and then go as far east as the probably old Route 1 intersection. But, Historical Society might want to include their property as well, and then including School Street to go all the way up to 80 Gray.
You can include individual properties that aren't contiguous with the district as well, can't you, Max?
Right.
We're
And
looking at-
that's what I'm talking about with how the November vote goes.
Yeah.
If I'm more on a time crunch to get 80 Gray on the register quickly, I might forget doing the district now and just get 80 Gray. I had someone else call me about trying to get one of their properties on the National Register, and any other people who really want to get their property on first, and then just work on the individual property before working on the district itself. So,
Thanks.
And Max, the reason for doing that is that there's, I guess, federal or state monies available if you're in a historic district.
if you're on the National Register, first of all, it does help with sort of awareness and publicity. Some people love to just go to places that are on the National Register. The Waldo Theater, for example, that's on the register. The German Church is on the register. I'm sure there's a few other spots in Waldoboro that are on it. The custom houses. They're just some nice things to have for people who want to go visit historic spots. But in terms of benefits that the owners get, they do have access to federal tax credits that can be used to help with rehabilitation projects.
Federal and state, no?
It always depends on the state. I don't know too much about Maine state historic tax credits or historic benefits, but I would need to talk more with them about that.
And so the other question I'd have, Max, is if the historic district gets on that, does that limit what people in the historic district can do with their properties?
Anyone? No, if they're on the National Register, that doesn't really restrict anything unless they use these tax credits.
Oh, okay, got it.
Because those tax credits are meant to rehabilitate the building. So they're not going to be too pleased if 3 years after you've done your historic rehabilitation, you end up destroying the property on your own because I don't know, you wanted to put in a skyscraper or something. I don't know. The only real restrictions come from people who touch those credits and people who are in, and whatever the town does. So Damerscott, for example, created their own recent historic ordinance that set its own standards and commission and whatnot. Essentially, it's a second planning board for anyone who wants to do something in that district. For Waldoboro, you would just go to our general performance standards and just see what we have for buildings that are in the historic village district. I mean, we're not going to stop someone who wants to just put up a basic wooden deck.
Right.
But at the same time, we're not going to, it's probably going to be a hard time for someone who wants to build a brand new house if it doesn't like fit in with the character of the neighborhood.
I thought that was local. I thought that kind of thing was something if we,
Yeah.
yeah,
And that's what I meant.
right, because we haven't set that up.
Max, is my property in the historic district?
Yes.
Okay. So if I have an empty lot, which I do, and I wanted to build on it, which I don't, but if I did, I would have to get the town to approve that to be in accordance with whatever the historic.
It depends what it is. I mean, if it's a basic house, obviously you still do the same process. You talk to Stan Waltz, but he just needs to make sure, he needs to look at what you're planning on building for the house.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Good. Thank you. So can you talk a little bit about the what we talked about last month about vacant properties or properties that the town owns, and
Sure.
reviewing it and seeing what the potential is?
Sure. So I actually just got a list I got a list from Julie that gives a few of these properties. I still haven't put them on a map yet because the election and a lot of other items have come up and have been taking over my world.
I think it's fair to say we wouldn't expect to see anything till after the election, right?
Yeah, that's fair.
All right.
But there are quite a few properties. I think the select board still needs to designate and verify what committee does this. Bob, that I don't know if that's something you can have on the next agenda, just even if it's a quick thing, because I was outside of the 80 Gray meeting for quite a bit, but from what Jan told me, I think there's still some confusion about who's going to have that responsibility. And I think it is important that that's cleared up.
So you want the select board to give the EDC some direction in terms of land inventory?
Well, I believe that's what was asked for when the Philbrook ball fields were being discussed, and Julie mentioned that it's kind of a bigger problem. We can't just talk about the RFP for the ball fields if we're not thinking about all the other spots in town.
Right.
And speaking with her, it sounded like the EDC would probably be a good fit for that.
Yep.
So if just next meeting that can be designated so we can officially focus on that.
But it's my recollection that was spoken about less in terms of an RFP and more in terms of just inventorying the land and figuring out what might be the optimal use for certain parcels.
Correct.
Okay.
Because there are some pieces of property that I think would be good if, well, may not, we probably don't even need it. Probably could sell it off, but some of these could be pocket parks. Some of these we could just see as potential way of selling it or leasing it out for a different use. And that's just part of what I think this group can talk about.
I think, Max, just being aware of what's out there would be good,
Yeah, and that's, I mean, I can send you the list of just all the places, and then when I do have time, I'll try and put these all on a map so we can at least see where these properties are, similar to what we did for the TIF.
Yeah,
That's
so
good.
my advice to you would be, take the time to do it right, and don't just send us a big file with a big list of, like, if it's something that needs to wait till after the election, let's do it that way.
Okay.
Take the time to do it right. So when we get the package of properties, it makes sense. There's a map that goes along with it, that kind of thing.
Okay.
Does everybody agree with that?
Yeah,
That's okay.
Yes.
but we can do the select board thing this month.
Yes. And I think that would be good just to have that sort of finished and cleared for the record.
Yeah, what led up to this was something somewhat controversial. I'm still kind of in favor of, if we can find an alternative place for the ball fields at 80 Gray, that's the if. And if the person who wants to use those ball fields for something else is willing to pay to construct ball fields elsewhere, and they do that before they start their project, I'd be in favor of allowing that 80 Gray property, if it's suitable for it, to be developed into single-family homes.
So I think full context is needed in this case.
Max, go ahead.
So part of the originally the 80 Gray subcommittee was only looking at Tim Wells's proposal. And in Tim Wells's proposal, he wanted all 3 town-owned pieces of property that are on School Street and Philbrook Lane. That includes the 80 Gray School, what I call 80 Gray Field, and then the Philbrook Ball Field, and that's about 8 acres. When the town decided to decline Tim Wells's offer and chose Volunteers of America instead, Volunteers of America said that they didn't need the density if they were going to be in the historic village district, and only really needed the school and the basketball courts, essentially. Well, and the parking lot, obviously, but they didn't really need the fields.
Right.
So what some members of the subcommittee wanted to do was do an RFP for the nearby fields to see if we could get market rate housing so that we could expand Waldoboro's tax base. And some other members thought that that was a bit controversial because it would be taking away the Philbrook Ball Field, which when it was given to the town would be used for recreational use. And then when we spoke with a member of the rec committee, Troy Smith, correct?
Yeah.
Who is also the rec director down in Brunswick, he was not in favor of the proposal, as well as Ben Vale, who lives on Philbrook Lane and is a member of the 80 Gray subcommittee. Both members said that the fields are widely used for recreational activity, and if there was a project to be done on there, there needs to be an alternative site given before any work is done, because if the project's done and we don't have a field at that point, we lost a soccer field, a baseball field, and a football practice field all in one go.
Not to mention
Yeah.
the Waldoboro Day venue.
And
Yeah.
the Waldoboro Day venue.
Yeah.
So some members of the subcommittee still wanted to progress and do an RFP. And I think it was 1 or 2 months ago, it was brought up again when we were looking at the RFP that subcommittee has kind of gone away from its original purpose, and it's better if, and then Julie recommended that the fields plus all town of Waldoboro properties are looked at to see what can get us some additional tax revenue, but also what can provide some good recreational alternatives for the town of Waldoboro. And so it was, and then Julie and I talked more outside of the committee and thought it would be better if it was away from the 80 Gray subcommittee, because they should be focusing more on the school itself rather than the neighborhood.
Yeah.
And we thought that the EDC would probably be a good unbiased opinion on this, because there is a mixture of people in it, and you haven't really been focusing on the 80 Gray building, so you could probably detach yourself from that whole thing and look at the broader picture, like, again, what you did with the tip.
So the thing that just, I know I've reported this at a couple of different committee meetings, but just to remember that the young families in town with kids, one of their general concerns is for places where the kids can play and do things. And I know that there was a playground committee at one point, and so forth. So maybe we need to be thinking about land that could be combined use for maybe fields and playground and whatever, you know, what did they call that when they have these, what do they call it when they have the obstacle courses and things like that? For like, I know that that was some of their ideas, like an obstacle course for kids and or adults that would be for exercise, that kind of thing. Anyway, just throwing it out.
I really like Bob's concept.
So essentially, we're waiting for the select board to make a decision in terms of whether they want the EDC to take on part of that responsibility. And so I think that's kind of where we're at, right?
Try to get it.
Just to make sure I'm following something here. The AD Gray building would be housing aimed at or exclusively for retired people or older people, or is that kind of the flavor of it?
Senior housing.
Okay, because seniors who live there hopefully will have visitors, and those visitors might have kids they want to send out to a playground too.
Yeah.
So we shouldn't, well, anyway, that's okay.
Plus we have what do you call those trails in the back that are public trails that we want.
That's a great trail, by the way.
That's what I hear.
Yeah, it's terrific. Yep.
Well, somebody was going to talk about Sylvania. I just heard a lull here. What's the latest with Sylvania or that property?
Bob, do you want to talk about it, or do you want me to take it from here? Because it was mentioned at the last select board meeting, right?
I'll talk about it, but you're really good at filling in the things I miss.
All right.
Sylvania will be on the ballot too, and it will be a binding question. And the question will be whether or not the town should accept it as a gift from Leadvance with the knowledge that it is subject to an environmental covenant.
Mm.
And it's a very simple question. Yeah. Leadvance will, until the DEP lets them off the hook, Leadvance is going to be responsible for the cleanup on that property. If there's a sale or a transfer of ownership to the town, we have to be very careful about demarcating where their responsibility ends and ours begins. So
Is that a calendar line or a line in the ground?
it's a general, I think it's more a conceptual line. For example, you don't want to go there and dig unless you have permission from the DEP to do it. In fact, you don't want to go over there and sneeze until you have permission from the DEP to do it. And having the town in control of it, because Leadvance is going to sell it anyway. It's on the market.
Yeah.
And if somebody else buys it, we don't know how well off they're going to be financially, or whether they're going to run into trouble and then mess it up and leave it. And then who's left holding the bag? Well, town suffers. So the idea is that the town should control it. There's continuity there in leadership. There's continuity in ownership over time. We have a committee that's involved and would be engaged, and hopefully would continue to be engaged. There's institutional knowledge associated with that property that any other owner wouldn't have, that the town has.
If the town accepts it, does the town take any financial liability on for the pollution?
No.
Okay, good.
I think that's a interesting thing, Bob, because I agree. I think that based on what the knowledge is that we all have, that the town has about that property, I think that we would probably make better use of that property than anybody would. And I think we'd be a better steward.
I agree. And by the way, that really is something that Julie formulated. This was her, when they first came to us, her gut reaction was, oh yeah, we want to control this. We don't want to let people come in here and buy it and own it and screw things up for us.
Oh yeah, that could ruin the flats, that if it's not handled right.
Yep. No, it just makes total sense.
Yeah.
So I hope people vote yes on that one.
Yeah, me too.
Well, what would the town do with the property? Would we turn around and look for a suitable buyer?
No, we wouldn't sell it.
We would not sell it?
Not
So-
necessarily. I mean,
What would we do with it?
possible, I suppose, but I would hope we'd hold on to it for a while and think about it and consider the options.
So the first part would be we want to hold a forum just to talk with residents, because obviously if they vote to say yes, the Waldeboro should get it, then that probably means some residents have some ideas for what we should do with it. So we would hold a forum first of all, just so people can talk about their thoughts. Early on, Bill Napower and I did develop sort of an idea that could be used for what we do with the site. It would essentially make sort of the front area more green space recreation. And then depending on how the well testing goes, we would put some commercial items in the back. So that could be leased out to meet a commercial or industrial sort of need for smaller venues. I mean, in the past 3 years I've been here, I've had people looking for some industrial, and I've had people looking for industrial space, and I would always look to George, say, do you have any space available? And unfortunately, you'd say there's nothing. I'm not saying anything bad. I'm not trying to say anything about that with the industrial park, but I'm just saying more of a lease that would be between cottage industry and, you know, what the business park has, I guess.
In between size.
Right.
You put shipbuilding in there.
Yeah, we could. It's zoned industrial, so it could. And it would be closer to the water, but it would be outside of where the plume is. So, you know, and we would make sure that we're doing some soil testing and that we're doing stormwater management plans so that the new buildings wouldn't disrupt the area too much. And all of this is a potential. And what's actually interesting is because of the timing, it could actually be part of our downtown EDA project, actually.
Oh, that's interesting.
Because it would be expanding the utilities to where these potential buildings would be.
Yeah.
And it would also,
Is the idea of a solar farm behind us now, or is that still somewhere in the old one?
it could. I mean, we could do the forum and Bill and I could present this idea and everyone could absolutely hate it, but then everyone could turn around and say, why can't it be a solar farm? And we can look at a solar farm. That's certainly an option.
One of the other things that surfaces periodically, and I know that there's lots of, well, I believe there's state money and funding, land-based aquaculture is getting traction, so to speak.
Oh, yeah.
And if you want to have land-based aquaculture with access to salt water, all you have to do is dig a hole in the mud, and every time the tide comes in, you've got all the water you need. So you could have land-based aquaculture down there if you wanted it.
Yeah. And then because it would be right on the sewer line, it can dump right into that.
Yep.
And
Water too.
the water, yeah.
Right,
It would also be right next to the fiber line. And
right.
the EDA money could also be used to help fix up the Hofstas house.
Do they have three-phase power at
Yes.
that location?
Yes,
Road, yeah,
yeah.
I would hope so.
No, they do. That was the end of the, yeah.
As more places go high tech, and I guess I think we're all looking at this from the stuff we know about. I'm wondering if there's any companies in the area that would want to stand up a data center there. You need fiber, you need power, you need water.
Be perfect.
Boy, that's another good idea.
I mean, one thing that Bill and I would be doing is looking to see if there's some business who would like to sort of have a new anchor spot or a satellite spot, similar to what you're talking about, Ruben. I mean, it would be great. And that could help drive and give a potential match for the project too.
Right.
I do have to point out that it was Bill's and Max's concept.
Yeah.
helped convince Lead Vance to go ahead and give it to us.
That's impressive.
All right, guys.
Hey, but again, I think one thing they really just like to hear was that we do have a plan for where all the funding can come from. Like,
Yeah,
like even just phase one, which is just what I call green it up. That's just covering up that concrete slab and getting grass on there so that we're not looking at a big ugly slab that's cracking and is not going to be allowed to use for anything really.
Max, we can't, and you can't dig that up, right?
Cannot dig that up.
no, yeah,
Do not want to disturb that.
Yeah. So put a couple of feet of dirt over it
Yep.
and some grass.
Dirt,
A lot.
grass. We can put some shrubs and trees along the Friendship Road just to screen it and,
yeah.
you know, make it an ice rink.
You can do a bunch of raised beds and grow vegetables.
Yeah,
Yeah.
community garden.
Yep. And that's just what we wanted for phase one. And, you know, the town could look at that and say, you know, we just want that. And we're just as fine with that.
All right, good. Max, anything else?
Hey, Gray, Sylvania. Land use committee has got 3 warrants on the article. One is to give us a brand new land use ordinance. One is to do the land use. One's to create the floodplain ordinance, and one's putting 80 Gray in the historic village. George here was part of that. So, George, do you have any comments on that?
There's a lot of pages. I think we had lots of discussions. I missed some of them. I lengthened some of them. But I think it's a good thing.
George, what's your read on how the town landing, Dutch Neck Landing was resolved? Is that
That got
never?
a little confusing to me because and Max can probably help more than I can. There's different overlapping laws there or regulations there because it's near the water and this and the other thing. I don't think, I'm pretty sure it never worked out that anybody was going to allow anything really commercial going on there unless it was a marina. Max, could you clarify that?
No, that's pretty, you got it pretty much. Like, we weren't planning on building a McDonald's or anything. It would be just a business that uses the water or the immediate or the resources from the water right there on the spot.
One of the things that I never quite got figured out, and partly because the Zoom system and for whatever reason, I never quite did get clarity on if somebody wanted to have a building there using the river water to clean clams, would that be within the realm of possibility, or is that that's a commercial endeavor that requires the river
Yeah.
water?
Yeah.
I never quite figured out if that was something that, well, in particular, that the neighbors would fight tooth and nail or not.
I would imagine that is an allowed use, just because it's
Reliant on the water.
relying on the water. Yeah, because we were looking at, because a few years ago, the town, I believe, was looking at putting the oyster place at Dutch Neck.
Well, yeah, I'm not sure the town was, but the idea was floated and it was not received warmly by people. And I understood. I mean, I was sort of in favor of it because but the oysters have since gone landward. But there may be a future where I don't think anyone's going to put a big building down there and grow oysters in it, because I don't think that's the best way to do it. But having a smallish building where you pumped nice river water in to clean up clams that you couldn't otherwise sell, or to just add value to the clams, deparation or just cleaning. There's all kinds of things that benefit from having a pipe going into the river and back to the river, that I think are within the realm of possibility. And I think Max just agreed down there. I can tell you that we need to do some paving or something. It's
Yeah.
like terrible down there right now. You can hardly drive.
I'm at least glad that with the compromise that was made of at least taking out the industrial part, and probably the planning board will be looking at just what this means for what commercial is allowed. Yeah. So
But if I understood the language that we sort of ended up with, if it was commercial and it was a legitimate relation to the coastal asset or the water, like whether it was a marina or for storing lobsters, it sounded like it probably would be compatible and could be done.
Sounds like a good compromise to me.
Mhm.
but right now it's just going to be a matter of fixing the language and make sure it's all good. So other than that, I'm just looking at the planning board coming up. There's going to be pre-applications next week. Someone wants to do a campground at Wagner Bridge. I've spoken with this individual, and apparently it's the person who runs the campsite up at Gouldsboro, Maine, and he just wants to expand his business, and he saw Waldoboro and thought it was a good pick. So I'm looking forward to that. And funny enough, there is another person who wants to do a solar farm in Waldoboro.
Where? Where do they want to do it, Max?
Controversy Lane.
Oh, really?
Imagine.
Across the road from the Reed one.
Yep.
More or
They're doing
Is
some
one going to be in the shadow of the other one?
Nope, they're far enough away.
Good.
And this other person who's doing the solar farm has experience in Maine doing solar farms, and he seems to be on top of the ball with a lot of stuff with reaching out. And again, it's just going to be pre-application, so they'll likely be approved either in November or December.
Is that another commercial only one, or?
Yep, it would be similar to the one on the Reed farm.
So, okay, I would love it if somebody would, like, say, for residential people could buy in.
there actually is.
Really?
Vision is putting one up, not too far from Waldoboro.
Which one?
Huh.
You could go in and buy 1 kilowatt of power from them if you want to.
No kidding.
Wait, who is this?
0.3 megawatt installation with 3,000.
Wow.
panels. Yep.
Where's the solar farm you're talking about?
I'll tell you, just let me look up my minutes from the library meeting.
Okay.
But while I'm doing that, I can tell you that their participation structure is as a shareholder only. You cannot be a subscriber. So you have to make an upfront capital contribution in order to buy in,
Mm.
and it's not cheap.
Oh, okay.
What's not cheap? Do you have a number?
Well, if we were to do 35,000 kilowatts of capacity for the library, we'd have had to front about $74,500. And the estimate is that over a 35-year period, we would have saved $180,000 in electricity cost. But
That's a horrible payback.
it's a lousy, it's like a 14 or 15-year payback.
Yeah, that's awful.
Not very attractive.
No.
No.
I mean, they're trying, push forward.
Yeah.
All right.
And it was-
Max, is that it?
I think so.
Yeah. So back to business, I neglected to get approval of the previous minutes, which Max has issued. Jen, I know that you caught an error, which Max has agreed to correct. But beside that, do we have a motion to approve the minutes?
I move. So moved.
I'll second.
All in favor?
I got my hand up.
Okay, I got my hand up.
Ruben says aye.
All right,
I'm abstaining because I wasn't there.
all right.
Fair.
Max, thank you so much for doing that.
From
All right, just real quick, Ruben, any updates on the technology committee? Is that what you guys are called?
Today we're the Communications and Technology Committee. We've stuck to that.
Okay.
I know, I'm trying to remember what we went over at last meeting. Here's the current state. So CMP has actually gone ahead and driven the areas where we're trying to get broadband expanded primarily onto Chapel. And they started marking telephone poles to be replaced. It sounds like they've identified 20 poles that need to be replaced as part of this upgrade.
Wow.
There's some conversation on our end for, wanting to understand where and why. At the same time, this is what CMP does, so we're trusting that. But those services have been engaged. It's more than just the town of Waldoboro and Charter involved. And so while this will be kind of a slow burn, we're encouraged to see that next step carry on.
Wow.
That's expensive, isn't it? 10 poles?
I got
20 poles, and it's
20 poles. Yeah.
I mean, I'll be shocked if it's not at least in the tens of thousands when we're all done. This has become real because this
Yeah.
is now costing other places money. They're not going to halfway this.
Yeah.
I gotta say, congrats to Ruben. He's got the patience of Job dealing with.
This is a team effort. This is, I've gotten a lot of advice from a lot of people, including Bob. No one person has been successful here. We're standing on a lot of shoulders. We'll continue to do so.
That's great.
Advice is a nice word.
You can understand the frustration of the people who are having to wait too, though. It's not easy.
Oh, it's terrible.
Oh yeah, they all things considered. I think they've been real polite about it.
Oh,
Yeah.
the location of that solar farm is the Curra, C-U-R-R-A, family farm in Knox.
Oh, Knox County?
Knox. I don't know whether that means Knox County or the town of Knox. Is there a town?
Knox is north. Knox is up north. The town. Knox town is north.
Anyway, Curra family farm.
All right. Did you have anything that you wanted us to talk about? I thought you mentioned something, Max, when we were ending the last time, saying you wanted us to take a look at the that downtown revitalization master plan for some ideas around the SEDS thing, or do you want to put that on hold until after?
I guess I don't know if Ruben still had any more things to talk about with the CT.
Oh, sorry. Yep, sorry.
Those were the broad strokes. We're talking about when Chapel's done, we're not done. We're talking about other phases. We're done when there are no more houses to connect, and then we're still not done because of the title change. Chapel's still the headline. We've purposely put that on top of the pile. We want to get that phase done. That's a project, and we're looking at other roads and still talking to other ISPs. But I don't have any other headlines to share unless there's anything, Max, you think we need to go over specifically.
No, not tonight at least.
Okay.
Can I just add something, Max?
Yep.
And Jan, to Ruben, actually, Store Mountain Road has always been a topic of discussion regarding broadband.
Yep.
And I was talking to one of the residents the other day, and they are rekindling their interest in getting something going up that road. And the only suggestion I could make was that they go and talk to LCI directly. I don't know whether you have anything to suggest in lieu of that.
I do still need to reach out to Store Mountain, just because I only got the information on Monday and I was pretty busy today. But what I am hoping to do is possibly see if a Connect Main grant is possible for them, because I think it costs $32,000 to connect their whole road. And if we can get half of that done by the grant and see if LCI can chip in some money, I would imagine for all 6 residents, it would be a lot easier or more comfortable for them to pay for the local match.
Well, my impression was that at least some of them would be willing to do that.
Right. And I guess that's what I need to talk to them about.
Okay.
See who that willingness is.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt the flow.
That was a good question.
Yeah.
But no, that's all. Was there anything else from CTC before I answer Jen's question?
I don't think so.
So Jen, to answer your question, yeah, I did want members to just look at the plan to see if there's some type of items that sort of are clicking again, like, oh, this was a great idea. We need to make sure that's put in there, or I'm surprised we didn't think of this back then, or times have changed, so we should consider this instead. If any of that sort of clicked in people's heads, something that, for example, Ruben and I were talking with LCI about was possible public Wi-Fi in the downtown, and whether that means we try and do something over at the Pine Street Landing, or if we try and work it on one of the buildings on Friendship Road, since they'll probably be a bit higher to get a better signal. And and funny enough, this week I'm going to be having some students from UMO doing their capstone projects for different projects in Waldoboro. And one of them is going to include some students looking at footbridges and the river walk that we were talking about.
Cool.
Nice.
So if there's some other components that, and we've talked about EV charging stations, but what else what else is in people's minds? Whether it's improving just the home parking behind Action Building, or if it's negotiating more about the Worcester parking, making that a public parking area, or I'm just spitballing. What else are people looking at? And actually,
I think something that people have been complaining about for years is the signage and the wayfinding. I don't know if that's some small kind of thing we could find
a way to do.
To get people so that they would even know where the parking is. There is parking, but most people coming into town don't know where the parking is.
No, and that's a legitimate item to keep in mind.
Yep. I think that one would be, that would help a lot of people, strangers and locals. I don't know. I think, and when we did this, the Wi-Fi thing wasn't even in discussion. It's kind of funny when you think about it. And I think that that's also a priority, just because connectivity is so important now. I was going to say there was this suggestion for streetscapes or trees. I liked the tree program or the strategy that they have in here. But I don't know if it's time for that, because there's other things that might need to be done before that,
Streetscaping, okay.
Well, who knows? Look at what Steve Warren has done with his group, to how beautiful things look. It's just such an amazing thing what they've done. But this would be a simple thing. Establish co-op tree trust programs. Refer to City of Portland Forestry Division for models. Become a Tree City USA. Refer to National Arbor Day Foundation. There might be something inexpensive there, and maybe it's a tree or maybe it's a bush. Who knows? But that could be something that we just keep in mind. We already did a couple of these things.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Some of these are probably a bit outdated now or moved. But even your suggestion of streetscaping and saying, well, now we have the garden club. Perhaps the garden club could give a good suggestion that they may have a big project they wanted to do, but just don't have the resources.
That's a great idea.
This could just be part of it. We really can think big right now. And I only start breaking your hopes and dreams later on.
We can wait for that.
First step is always to have a plan.
Yeah.
All right. So that brings us, I think we've gone over the old business pretty much. Is there any new business that we need to talk about?
What is the building that's being built in front of the town office? Just because I happened in town once for the first time in 3 weeks.
Tony Galais bought the pawn shop. He tore down one building, and to be honest, I hear a different use every time I hear about that building. Originally, I was told it was going to still be the pawn shop. Then I was told it was going to be an ice cream stand. Then I was told it was going to be just a warehouse for the wreaths. Now I'm hearing that it's just going to be his own personal office, and that's it. So I am not 100% sure, but I believe at this point it's just going to be his own personal office.
Is that the building that got blown over?
Yes.
That was sad.
I heard they were going to sell Christmas trees there.
Well, you can sell Christmas trees anywhere. I mean, that, that's just a short-term kind of thing.
All right.
That's a good spot for it, right in the center there.
It's a great spot.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think, does anybody else have anything else? All right.
Does Max have another assignment for us?
Nope. I'm going to try, and I'm juggling the KED stuff and Waldeboro stuff, and I'm going to try and get something so that just shows the map of the town-owned properties. And I think just keep thinking of future EDA projects.
Okay.
I mean, now that Sylvania is a possibility, we can also think about alternative uses for the Sylvania site.
Mm-hmm.
Even if that just includes sort of guidelines of what should and shouldn't be allowed. We can think about, as long as it's not residential or long-term care, like childcare facilities or a nursing home, you can pretty much do anything you want on the Sylvania site.
I don't think you can have restaurants.
No,
No, you can have restaurants.
really?
I have restaurants in the industrial zone.
I'm not sure.
Well, I'd have to check the new land use ordinance.
I'm pretty sure I can't.
I think
I think I'd rather adjourn than hear the answer.
hold on. You asked it. Yeah, restaurants aren't allowed, but I believe food trucks are allowed.
Oh, food trucks are good.
Yep.
So I should paint wheels on the restaurant.
There you go.
So here's the thing, Max. If things can be built down there,
Yep.
does that mean that earth can be turned, or does it have to be done differently?
We don't want to go too deep. We don't want to do like a basement. It would be probably concrete foundation,
Okay.
and not doing too much earthwork. The only
Okay.
earthwork that we would want to do is just getting the sewer and water pipes on site.
Mhm.
And even if we're doing that, we still need not MDOT, Maine Department of Economic. I can't talk. It's 8 p.m. We still need
DEP.
Maine DEP to approve the project, and
Yeah.
and we need to give soil testing to make sure that we're not coming across any new contaminated sites.
Right.
And we have to make sure it doesn't interfere with Leadvance's ongoing remedial operations.
Right. Right.
It's like 40 acres. It's pretty big down there by the river.
I think it's 40 acres for the Sylvania site and then 10 acres for the Hofsas property.
Right. So that's quite a bit of frontage on the river.
Oh, yeah.
And it's a long way from where the original site of pollution was, origin. So I got to believe that there's some shallow digging you could do down there. And I do think that land-based aquaculture does have a future. And that's a place where there's salt water twice a day.
Mm.
As long as you could access the new area, George, like circumventing around, where the contamination area is, contaminated area.
Could you not drive? Could you not drive?
You should be able to do that.
Could you not drive over them?
No, he's saying like bring the sewer line down, bring water lines down. So
Right.
obviously you can't do that through the middle of the site.
Right.
You've got to find another way to get in.
I think the plan for the commercial was, where you turn in and is essentially like extra parking for the all play that people shouldn't be doing, but people do anyways.
Oh, yeah.
The
Yeah.
original parking lot.
Right.
Yeah.
Essentially, what we would do is continue going along that area for putting in the new utilities, just having that go along the property line and then sort of taking a left turn once we get maybe 300 feet from the water, which is just outside the shoreline zone,
Right.
which
Oh, I see.
which would be
I see.
very far away from the road.
I
but,
see.
You know, people could still drive down there.
Mm-hmm.
It's awfully rough territory down there too. There are lots of ravines,
Mhm.
Yeah.
cut-ins along the river there. It's not smooth sailing by any means.
Yeah.
But I mean, that plan that Bill and I gave, that's very, rough concepts. It can easily change. And so that's why I say if someone wants a project to do for the next month and doesn't want to think about the election, they can just say, what would be a good thing to have down at the Sylvania site?
I love that.
Give yourself a 10-minute fantasy.
Well,
Yeah.
and this is another one, Max, where you have to wait until the town votes and
Right,
let you know, right?
right. But I mean, I would hope the town sort of sees what Julie and Bob have seen, and it would probably be better in town's hands, because
Yeah.
even if we just do nothing with it, the town gets a 50-acre open field
Mhm.
that's on the water.
Hey, Max, is the land generating taxes?
Yes.
Right
Yeah.
now.
We reduced their taxes quite a bit last year. They came in and asked for a recalibration, and we gave it to them.
Yeah. It's not much.
It's not to say it's money.
It's money. Right.
It'd be nice to generate some rent money or whatever you can generate on that property, as long as it's safe.
Yeah. All right. All right. Anything else that we'd like to talk about under new business?
I was just wondering whether Mr. Martins might chime in on what's going on with COVID and
Oh, terrific idea.
Miles, and give us sort of an insight into what we can expect in Lincoln County. I'm a little bit disturbed. The numbers have gone up to 50 when they were used to be around 15 or 20. All of a sudden, we're
It
where?
actually, yeah, went up pretty quick.
Is that more testing? What's going on?
Well, I think one of the things to understand is that the number of tests that are being run are up exponentially as well. Our positive testing rate at Lincoln Health for the last week, we tested 400 people and we had 2 positives. So our testing positive rate is 0.5%, which is exceptionally low and indicative that there's no community spread. None of the cases we've had in the last month have been related, so they've been individualized in nature. So nothing like the Millinocket wedding situation where there's a community that has spread this virus to secondary and tertiary people who came in contact. Lincoln County still remains, I think, the 5th lowest county in the state of Maine in terms of the number of cases. I mean, we're certainly watching what's happening in other communities. And, at Lincoln Health, we definitely are prepared in the event of another surge. But so far, Lincoln County has fared very well. It's interesting where, we get concerned when we see 2 or 3 new cases in a week, when, certain communities are seeing 3 cases in an hour. But that vigilance is really important. I mean, people have to continue to wear their masks, keep the social distancing, hand wash regularly. And I think in some of the other communities, what we're seeing is that people are getting a little bit more complacent and they're not doing that. And the numbers are going up because of that. We have great plans in all of the schools. Lincoln Health sort of facilitates some of those discussions and has relationships with the schools in the county, and the school folks have been right on top of it and have really good plans in the event of any cases in the schools. We are seeing a lot of people coming in to get the so-called swab and send state tests. And the majority of those have come back negative. So that hasn't really added to it. I think overall, I've been impressed with the people of Lincoln County in terms of how they've taken this really seriously and continue to do so. We need to wait and see. We anticipated perhaps a spike when we had more tourism here, and we didn't see that. Knock wood, we really truly haven't had what somebody would define as a surge in cases yet. There's a lot we don't know in terms of how this is going to go, but so far so good for Lincoln County.
There was on the news the last few days, there's been this story about York Prison. And I believe they were saying that they didn't want to upset the prisoners, so they didn't make them wear masks. So, I mean, it made no sense whatsoever, but.
Yeah, I saw that, and it was, the enforcement officers in the prison weren't wearing masks because they didn't want to cause anxiety for the prisoners, apparently.
That does not impress me, but
No.
anyway, we have a prison in Warren, and people work there and come and go. Do we know if they're behaving in a real conservative way over there?
So with Warren being outside of Lincoln Health Service area and in Penn Bay Service area, I wouldn't have the answers to that.
I didn't know if anybody might know something, because
I hadn't heard anything. In terms of that. At our hospital, for example, our nursing facilities are required by the feds now and the state government to test all of our employees. We've done that on the Lincoln Health and the Damascotta campus. None of our employees came back positive, which is a good thing because now we can look at opening up visitation by appointment and getting areas set for potential visitation. And for the folks who are in nursing homes and for our staff, breathing some life into their world. I mean, they've virtually been on lockdown for so many months. We were actually on lockdown a month and a half before COVID because of an influenza outbreak. So I just am very enamored with how hard those folks are working in a very, very difficult environment and short-staffed and just doing a tremendous job. We know if it gets into our nursing homes there, it would have to come in from us because people aren't coming in from outside. And that's a lot of pressure on the staff, I think, to carry that burden, but they've done very well with it. And fortunately, all the tests came back negative.
good.
That's good.
All right, well, that's
That's
it for me.
All right.
Thank you for that.
My pleasure.
Yeah, thank you. All right, and on that note, we're actually our time's pretty good, hour 16. I'm going to adjourn the meeting.
Oh, actually, I'm sorry.
Not yet.
One quick thing.
Sure.
I know that we did 7 p.m. as the meeting start time because
Yes.
we wanted to focus on, because this was before COVID and we wanted to get home at a reasonable time, but now everyone's pretty much home right now. So is 7 p.m. start time still what people want to do, or do people want to consider a different time, at least while COVID is still a thing and we're likely going to do Zoom meetings?
I'm happy with 7.
I'm happy with whatever people want.
Me too. I can go either way, Max. I can go to 6 if you want it, or I can stay at 7.
Makes Max
Flexible.
stay out later. He could be home now, kicking back and having a beer.
Well, who says I'm not at the town office right now drinking a beer?
That's why they call it Zoom.
I say more power to you.
You could be at Narrows right now for all we know.
That's true.
Yeah, that's why I turned it off. I mean, seriously, because of this laptop, I could just take it. I could just do Zoom from home. The only reason I'm here until 7 is because I was doing the absentee ballots.
Oh, okay.
I'm open if it makes sense to have an earlier call. 7 works fine as well. So, Max, I really think it's kind of up to you.
Yeah, whatever you say, Max, either we'll agree or we won't.
Yeah.
I think people are still fine with 7, so at least for now, let's just keep doing 7, I guess.
If it ever lets you get home earlier, Max, I think that's what everyone's thinking about. You
Yeah.
put a lot of hard work in, and
Again, I'm usually good. the past few times it's actually worked out because I've had to be here until 7 with the
Yep.
rest of the work. So I don't think there's really a problem. I might bring this up again in maybe December, but you know,
Okay.
we'll see what,
All right.
actually, that's the other part. Because next month, the first Tuesday of the month,
Oh.
it is the election.
We'll have to cancel the election, Max.
I love it.
Yeah.
It was gonna be a hoax anyway.
Oh, there it is.
No.
I like this show. This is good time.
Okay, should we move it to later in the week or move it out a week?
We have a select board meeting on the 10th.
Aren't you all gonna be counting votes?
Yeah, I
Oh,
don't
yeah.
know. Yeah, because of how the absentee, because we're going to have the local warrant articles that aren't going to be able to be read by the machine,
Oh,
we're
yeah.
going to be hand counting a lot of local items. We're going to be hand counting over 1,000 papers.
Wow. Yeah.
I bet there'll be a lot of people voting.
There better be a lot of people voting.
Should we kick the can down to December?
I don't see any reason why not.
All right.
If
Is it-
something, Max, if something comes up, Max, that you think's important, you can just let us know and we can
Yeah.
figure out a date, right?
Or we can communicate by email and
Yep.
reach consensus on things as well.
I think that makes sense.
December, that'll be December 1st.
So our next meeting will be the first Tuesday in December, whatever that is.
December 1st.
December 1st, perfect. All right, and I think we're adjourned.
All right, let me
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.